Before we jump into this week's episode of Major Pain, I will remind you that I am not a medical professional. Please do not take any medical action based off what you hear on this podcast without first consulting your doctor.
Medicine itself is kind of nebulous.
My brain is just wired differently.
You're feeling symptoms that the tests aren't showing exist.
People need to hear your story.
Welcome to Major Pain. I'm your host, Jesse Mercury, and this week I am so excited to be joined by our guest, Sarah. Sarah, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, Jesse.
I'm so excited to talk to you today. Thank you so much for being flexible on scheduling. We were just talking about how with the Chronic Illness podcast, I rescheduled these recordings so often. This time it was because I had a flare-up a couple days ago, but we're back and we're ready to go. So thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate you coming on the show.
Of course. I'm happy to be here.
Let's get to know you a little bit before we jump into your story. So Sarah, why don't you tell us about yourself?
Yeah, so I'm Sarah. I live in Middleton, Wisconsin, which is just outside of Madison. I'm 45 as of a few days ago.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. I'm still adjusting to being 45, which feels kind of like a big deal. Anyway, I live with my husband, Dan, and our cat, Daisy, who may visit us during this recording. And I'm actually a really passionate ballroom dancer.
Really?
That's something that I really love doing, and it's actually something that really helps with a lot of my health conditions, too.
Wow, that's fascinating. I don't think I've ever spoken to a ballroom dancer on the podcast before. At least not to my knowledge. Who knows?
Yeah. Well, I guess, that's my big hobby. Day job-wise, I work for a charity raising money for local causes. And then I also work part-time as a film festival screener too. So that's sort of my orbit, my life.
Wow, interesting. What film festival?
South by Southwest.
You screen films for South by Southwest?
Yeah.
That's a big deal.
It's a big deal. It's fun. It's a lot of fun. I love supporting like up and coming filmmakers.
Wow, that's like one of the biggest up and coming filmmaker festival in the country. So are you on a committee that helps choose films?
Yeah, I have to be fairly secretive about the details, but yes, that's generally what I do. And like the really cool part is then going to the festival in Austin every March and actually getting to see some of the premieres and talking to some of the actors and directors. It's really neat to be able to do that. And it's also really cool to see, people who are still just kind of up and coming, and this is their first film. And that's really exciting to support those voices as well.
Yeah. Wow. So cool. I mean, I manage a movie theater, so that's very much the world that I live in, sort of. I mean, we're getting a lot of Disney films, but
You can make a joke about like how it's actually kind of ideal if you have like chronic fatigue or chronic illnesses to be into movies, because you kind of get to sit and watch things and take your mind off of things like too.
Yeah, totally. My whole life I've loved movies. I love escapism. I love, science fiction, fantasy. Those are my favorites. But just feeling like I exist on another plane of reality is something I've just always been very drawn to. I know some people that's just not their bag, and I just don't understand that. I'm like, why? It's the best.
Yeah, I think it's thrilling. Like when you see a movie that you really connect with, I think it's absolutely like one of the most exciting feelings. Especially if it's something you're like, what does that mean? I'm going to try to figure that out. I don't know. I love going to the movies too. It's fun. I used to on my birthday every year go to a theater and just watch like 3 movies in a day, because it's just fun to be at a theater and like eating popcorn and like watching movies too.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I spend a ton of time at a theater these days, and I do go to movies often at our theater, and that's the biggest perk of the job is, all the free movies that I could possibly watch. I think the one that came out recently that blew me away the most was Sinners. Did you see Sinners?
Oh yeah, I totally saw Sinners. It had such good music. I loved seeing Buddy Guy in it. That was in the like post credits like sequence.
Oh my God, that was amazing.
Yeah.
Yes. That movie's so good.
Yeah,
so
it is really good.
Okay, well, let's jump into your chronic illness journey. I know that you have a very complicated one, but let's get into it. Sarah, what is your major pain?
My major pain is having over 20 health conditions and also being neurodivergent and trying to manage all of those conditions at the
Wow.
same time. Yeah.
Over 20 conditions.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
up there. And I know that you have a list. So what is your list of diagnoses?
Yeah. Well, we started out with asthma. That was the one that showed up when I was really a baby. So we got an early start on this head count if it's like a race. Um, So, like many of the people who have been on your podcast, I have hypermobile Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, which of course comes with all kinds of side benefits, I guess, comorbidities.
Yeah.
So I don't know yet if I have POTS or if I have MCAS. I can tell you I'm on an MCAS protocol, and that I definitely have some issues with dizziness and vertigo, which is on my list too, that may suggest POTS, but it's been really hard to get a diagnosis for that. I also have polycystic ovary syndrome. So that's one that I got diagnosed in my 20s. I also have pretty severe GERD, which is not fun. I had to give up coffee, which like no one should ever have to give up coffee.
That's
It's
cruel and unusual for
cruel.
sure.
It is cruel. I have chronic rhinosinusitis, which just means I have a stuffy nose a lot of the time and sinus infections. Somehow I got diagnosed with both allergic and non-allergic rhinitis, which is pretty funny. I have psychophysiological insomnia, although that's a little bit of a controversial one because they don't use that term anymore. I also have ADHD. I suspect, but don't have a diagnosis. This is another one where it's like sometimes it's just really hard to get diagnosed properly. I strongly suspect that I have learning disabilities and that I have dyslexia, despite having been an English major in college and graduate school.
Wow.
And I have sensory processing issues. I don't know yet if I have autism or not. But I definitely have sensory processing issues. I've had them pretty severely my entire life. I have anxiety, but I'm convinced that the anxiety is because of not having accommodations for my ADHD and the sensory processing issues. I get chronic migraines. Thankfully, my husband actually he has really serious chronic migraines. So thankfully mine are not as frequent as his, but I do get them. I have a bunch of vitamin deficiencies. So I had iron deficient anemia. I think at one point I also had a B12 and D deficiency. Seasonal affective disorder. That one's not fun. I have to imagine that you're in Seattle, right? That's gotta be relevant for a lot of people.
Oh yeah. One of our very first episodes ever was on seasonal affective disorder.
Yeah. Let's see. Oh, I had PTSD. I've had trauma in my life, various forms of trauma, and I think I've had trauma therapy, and it's been really helpful. I have pulsatile tinnitus, which is like a subtype of tinnitus that you hear kind of I don't know, like a tone instead of like a ringing. I don't know. There's like, oh no, it's when you hear your pulse in your ear. I forgot.
Yeah. I've experienced that actually.
Yeah. It's like very disconcerting if you don't know what's happening.
It feels like your heart's about to explode. You're like, why am I hearing my own heartbeat?
Why am I hearing my heartbeat?
And it's like you're trying to lie down and relax, and it's like boom, 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 boom. It's like really disturbing.
You're just picking up on those movie cues, right? It's
yeah, exactly. Yeah, if there was like a slow cello underneath, you got to get out of the room.
Yeah, absolutely. Except the room is your brain.
Yeah.
So I accidentally discovered, which this is common to accidentally discover, that I have a Chiari malformation. It's one of those things that you get an MRI for something else, and then they'll just be surprised you have a Chiari malformation. So tinnitus actually could be connected to that, which is kind of interesting. Let's see. I have various things that suggest dysautonomias. Well, I have officially postural lightheadedness, which is just a fancy way of saying vertigo sometimes. I have lichen sclerosus. I have premenstrual dysphoric disorder, which is kind of like where if you have a period, you can kind of lose track of who you are as a human for a few days.
Yeah.
IBS, central auditory processing disorder. And then randomly, the weirdest one I've ever gotten diagnosed with was when I was 18, maybe 19, and like interviewing for jobs at a summer camp. I randomly tested positive for tuberculosis.
What?
Thankfully, if you don't know, it's not just something from the like 1800s. You can get it. I think I caught it from someone like sneezing like in the subway because I kind of remembered. You know how you get food poisoning, you just remember like what probably caused it. I think it was someone sneezing on me. And then, but the thing is, there's two types. It's like, it can be in your blood or it can be in your lungs. If you're in your lungs, it's really serious and it's very contagious. If it's in your blood, they can give you just like 6 months of antibiotics and you're fine. So I'm in that camp of like people who had to take antibiotics for a very long time. But when I first knew, before they told me what the treatment was, I thought I was gonna like die like a French poet or something like that. It's very dramatic.
Wow. I mean, I don't even really know much about tuberculosis. Like, what are the symptoms and what are the risk factors there?
Yeah, I think risk factors are being around people who have it in their lungs. So it's not super common to catch it, but if you're around people who might not have had access to medical care, and who have had a chance for it to develop from something in your blood to something in your lungs, which they can see on an X-ray, it's more likely you would catch it. So it's not something that you're very likely to catch, but it is possible. I think in my case, it was someone who was housing insecure or didn't have a home and was living on the streets and probably didn't have good access to medical care. And it was, he sneezed on me and I'm pretty sure that that's what happened. So
yeah.
So that's
and what are the symptoms of tuberculosis?
I don't know. Because if you have the blood stuff, you don't really have symptoms at all. So, anytime I get a TB test the rest of my life, I'll test positive.
Wow.
Yeah, but I don't know. It's such an old-timey disorder that I'm sure it's pretty bad when it's in your lungs. But I couldn't tell you like what the lung symptoms are.
That's so random. And it's like, hey, I already got enough going on. Why
It's
not
like,
throw on tuberculosis?
Yeah, it's like a medical oddity in my life. So,
Yeah. Wild.
we throw some on just to be entertaining, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, so you have this huge list, and you were kind enough to share this with me beforehand, and we've sort of talked through it a little bit before we started recording. There are a few here that we've never covered. There are 4 different things on this list that we've never talked about on the podcast. And because I'm not a medical professional, I don't know what they are. That's sort of the beauty for me of this podcast, is that I only know about the diseases that we've covered on the show. So whenever I hear about something that I've never heard about, I get excited. So we made a little list here, the things that we've never talked about. Let's go through these and drill down a little bit about what these are. The first one, exercise-induced laryngeal obstruction. What is that?
That's my most recent diagnosis, and I'm actually delighted to have the diagnosis because it's really hard. I have asthma, and so asthma and EILO have very similar symptoms, but they're different. So I think asthma is when you have trouble breathing all the way out. EILO is when you have trouble breathing all the way in. And what happens is your vocal cords, especially when you're doing, for me, when I'm doing something at like a high intensity, like I'm doing my ballroom dance stuff, they'll snap shut. And so air can't get through. And so then what I would find myself doing is like hyperventilating, getting dizzy, I'd take my asthma inhaler and it wouldn't help. So if you have asthma, you take an asthma inhaler, it helps right away. If it doesn't help, this is one of the things it could be. It's diagnosed a lot in athletes because, for me, it only happens when I'm doing something at a higher intensity, like hiking or dancing or something where I have to be, and swimming too. Swimming is one where you really need to be able to breathe really well. So I was delighted because the treatment for it is really straightforward. I'm going to a total of 2 or 3 speech language therapy sessions, and they teach you different breathing techniques. And it's really simple to do the breathing techniques. And so for me, what it means, because I love dance so much, instead of having to stop periodically to catch my breath, I just do the breathing techniques and I can breathe while I'm exercising, which is generally something I would recommend.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Interesting. So it's sort of like if you know you have this and you know what exercises to do, it's manageable. But if you don't know you have it and you're not doing these exercises when you're trying to exercise, you
Yeah.
can't breathe.
Yeah, and it's really it can be sidelining, you know. So
Yeah.
there are times when I'd have to really just kind of completely stop to and sit for like 5 minutes to like catch my breath. Whereas now I'm learning with the breathing exercises, I'll still get out of breath sometimes, but I can force the vocal cords back open and start, and maybe it'll take 30 seconds instead of 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And then like the scary thing too is like if you don't know you have it, and I've been caught out hiking sometimes where I would just be hyperventilating and I'm stuck in the middle of the woods, which then leads to like a panic attack. So it's really great to have a diagnosis. It's really great for people to be aware of it because it's something that can really make exercising a lot harder. But yeah, pretty straightforward to address it.
Interesting. Yeah. And it speaks to the power of a diagnosis that, something like that, knowing you have it, it just folds into the tapestry of your life. Not knowing you have it, as you said, it sidelines you. That's really interesting.
Yeah.
What is lichen sclerosus? I have no idea what that is.
Yeah, so lichen sclerosus, it's a skin condition that causes your skin to be discolored and thin. It typically affects your genital and kind of anal areas as well. So it's not something that's like easy to talk about, but anyone can get it. It's not contagious, and it can lead to like scarring. And actually, if you don't get it treated, it can lead to having difficulties going to the bathroom. It can lead to difficulties with sex and having sex be pleasurable. So it's a really impactful condition, and the sooner you get treatment, the less damage it will do.
Wow. So you said discoloring and thinning of the skin.
Yeah.
What is the treatment for that?
So the treatment is, at least in my case, like a steroid cream, like a really strong steroid cream. And there's a protocol for like if you have a flare up, that's like essentially using it every day for a couple weeks, and then it's like twice a week for the rest of time. So, but it was a really hard one because I didn't know a lot of people who have kind of problems like this, like they feel embarrassed or they don't quite know what it is. They might think it's just them, that they're experiencing pain during sex or other things like that. I was aware that something was going on many years before I actually talked to my doctor. And even when I decided to talk to my doctor, it took me like a full year to like actually talk to her. And then I had to do a video visit because I was too embarrassed to like go in person. Like mentally for myself, it was easier to talk with her about it, like first on a video and then go in. And the diagnostic process is not fun. It's a punch biopsy. So they have to take tissue to analyze it because there's other things that can be similar. And it's also an autoimmune condition, but I've learned that you're not necessarily, if you have it, you're not necessarily susceptible to other autoimmune conditions. It's kind of its own thing. So
Yeah, I've done a punch biopsy for small fiber neuropathy, and that they take off all the layers of skin. So it's like it is a small little hole, but it's like all the layers, and then it's very prone to infection, and it's something you have to be very careful about. When you finally just got that diagnosis, obviously something's going on. You mentioned feeling like embarrassed to go to the doctor about it, holding off on talking about it. When you get that diagnosis, Was that a sense of relief, sort of like with the LEO, where you talk about the relief of knowing what it is?
I think this is one where it was a lot to process. I'll be
Sure.
honest. I mean, it's good because I know that getting the treatment, it will help prevent even worse problems from happening. I don't want to get this wrong, but I think that like it there's some aspect of it that can make you more susceptible to certain cancers.
Hmm.
And so treating it is important. Like you need to kind of be on top of it. And I'm not a medical professional, so if I'm getting that wrong, I apologize. And it's all certainly more comfortable, like after you've treated it.
Mm.
But the idea that it has had such a huge impact on like my sexual health and like wellness, it's a lot to still process through even now. I think it's really important that people know about it because if you can catch it early, it's beneficial. But yeah, it's still kind of, I don't know, it makes me sad on some level as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I really appreciate you sharing. I mean, I think part of the reason maybe that I've never heard of this is because it is a sensitive topic, and stuff like this, we're sort of socialized not to talk about. But if you're living with it, hearing someone else talk about it is such a gift. Or if someone out there has this, is hearing this, has never heard of lichen sclerosus before, and this is that sort of aha moment, the light turns on, they're like, oh, maybe that's what I have, and then they can go and try to pursue some care. That's a really, really big deal. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Okay, the next one, central auditory processing disorder. I've never heard of this either. What is central auditory processing disorder?
So, yeah, I was having trouble hearing, and so I went to a hearing doctor, did all of the hearing tests, and they all came back fine. Like my ears are fine. There's nothing physically about my ear that's wrong. But I kept telling my doctor, I'm like, like anytime I'm in like a room, like a networking event, or there's overlapping conversations, I swear to you, I can't hear anything. And so that's what central auditory processing disorder is. I believe that it's related to, I think that people, again, I'm not certain, but I think that people with ADHD can also have central auditory processing disorder too. Essentially, what it is your brain doesn't process the words correctly. So it's not your ear, it's not a physical hearing problem. It's that your brain can't process all of the information at once. And it's really hard when I'm at like an event there where there's a lot of people. I'll just miss things sometimes. So it was really helpful to have the hearing doctor explain what it was and also like some of the strategies for coping with it as well.
Yeah, interesting. So the sound is going into your brain, and then your brain is struggling to process. It sounds like maybe when there's more than one thing to focus on, it's worse. Is that true?
That's absolutely true. Yeah.
And then does that happen when there's only one source of sound to focus on, or does it have to be multiple sources to have this processing difficulty?
For me, it's funny because like two things I would say is that one is that like if my husband's facing the other direction, sometimes it's also hard. Like if he's talking but he's in like a different room or something, like that can be hard to hear. But again, it's not a hearing problem because I got all the tests done. I would also say that, yes, typically it is going to be just when there's overlapping sounds, but certain sounds don't really register for me as much. Like I always have a fan on a lot of the time, and like that's not going to trigger it. It's really if there are, like, if my husband says something to me while we're watching TV, I often have to pause it and then look at him and then make him look at me and then relay what he's trying to say. Cause I can't, it doesn't, it's kind of like my brain turns to mush when it happens.
Yeah, interesting. And then the last one that I hadn't heard of here was psychophysiological insomnia.
Yeah. So I read recently, kind of preparing for this, that it's not a term that's used anymore because the connotation is that it's trouble falling asleep because of anxiety. And I think that's one of those things where it's like, well, that could connote that someone doesn't believe you that you have insomnia. And so for me, what that actually was like in the context of when I got diagnosed with this, I was having chronic nightmares, which is a thing apparently. So for years, I was having like chronic nightmares, and I wanted to get help with it. And Northwestern University has like or had, I don't know if they still have it, a behavioral health clinic that's just for helping people cope with that type of disorder. As a child, I actually had night terrors, which is when you kind of randomly wake up in the middle of the night screaming. My brother gets them like too, even as an adult. And I do have insomnia. I want to say that most likely it's because I'm neurodivergent. And, a lot of people who are neurodivergent have various types of insomnia as well.
Yeah. Yeah, and as far as your neurodivergence is concerned, tell me more about that. How is that manifesting in your life?
Oh man, it's had such a big impact on my life. It really frustrates me when people say things like, "Oh, don't you think like too many people are getting diagnosed with ADHD these days?" Or "That's not real. Like, don't you think it's just like XYZ?" It's real, man. The impacts it had on me throughout like high school and even elementary school, I can remember, and college were really serious. I have time blindness. Some of them are funny, right? So in fact, they're funny. I have time blindness. I have a really hard time knowing what time it is, what day it is, what what week it is, what month it is. No, I'm just joking. But like, yeah, I don't often like today's my dad's birthday, and I have to write it down because even though I know it's his birthday, I'm gonna have to remind myself several more times to call him because I'll just forget. But like for meetings, like I'll just get into hyper focus like sometimes, and like, I'll just forget. Even if I set like 2 alarms, I will still miss them and I'll forget. And then I'll be like, oh God, sorry, I'm running this meeting. It's like 6 minutes like after the time that I said. When I was in college and stuff, I had so much trouble writing papers, like structuring my thoughts. I had so much trouble remembering like what I was reading that I would essentially spend all night long rereading things until I had basically memorized the books that I was reading. And that was all fine and well until I got to graduate school and my reading assignments were like 1,000 pages each week. And then all of my coping mechanisms, which were essentially to be hyper vigilant in things and to spend a lot of extra time, didn't hold up anymore just because of the volume of reading that I had to do. So yeah, it's been really, really impactful. It also just makes it hard to, like I'm someone that has to go to physical therapy pretty much forever because of the Ehlers-Danlos, and I have to do these speech language like appointments and stuff like that. Each time they'll give me like 2 or 3 things to remember to do, and like that process is chaotic. That process is like, okay, I have to remember to pull out the like printout, which they know by now to give to me, right? They know to physically hand it to me before I leave, because then I would have to like locate it in the health system. Then it's like, okay, do I have all the things that I need to do these exercises? That might take another like week or something to make sure that everything's in the same room. And then, I have so many doctors that I literally have a chart that's like what each doctor does, because I've sometimes like mixed doctors up by accident or providers up by accident, like how to schedule appointments with them because it's not the same for all of them. What are the expectations of how often I'm supposed to go? I cannot tell you how many times I've missed scheduling diagnostic appointments and things just because I had too much like to do, like medically.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's, I think, a common thing with ADHD is just that overwhelm of like, I have all these things I need to do, and there's too many, I can't do any of them, and just, nothing happens. My wife has ADHD, so this is something that we work on together as far as like, let's get this thing scheduled, you know?
Yeah, I do.
So in your current state, modern day, just looking at how things are right now, you have this massive list of diagnoses.
Yeah.
What is the day-to-day impact? How is all of this interacting with your daily life and living with chronic illnesses like this?
Yeah.
How does that show up for you day to day?
I think a couple of ways. I mean, one is medications. Like I have to take, I don't know, I have like a whole 2 shelves of my medicine cabinet that are mine. So, and like, it's really hard to remember sometimes. I've set up kind of systems for myself to remember if I've taken them or not. So, and there's tools, there's like things you can get that are like timers that go on the caps so that you can say it basically tells you the last time you opened it or touched it. I use visuals in my house. Like I always count my stuff out into a dish first, and then if I've put the dish back, I've taken it. If I haven't, I haven't taken it yet. So that's like an element. And then it's like sometimes there's an element too for anyone that's had ADHD medicine in the last like 5 years. You have to pick it up on like a certain day. Like they won't let you have it before that day. And it's not something you can automate. It's not something that there's multiple steps each time you have to get it. It's really, really hard. You know, when you think about I love traveling. And like when you think about traveling with medications, it's like, I don't know many people that have chronic illnesses that can have a carry-on suitcase and be their only suitcase. So there's always like kind of like a PT kit and like, you know, medication kit and stuff to like go with me. I would say beyond that, the biggest thing recently is I had to shut down my business recently, my small business, after 10 and a half years. And I've been job hunting and I just got a new job. A lot of it's just the pressure and stress of like asking for accommodations. The funny thing is that I'm very empowered in my sort of disabilities and chronic illnesses. Like I like to say joyfully disabled, because some people, you say that you're disabled and they're like, I'm sorry, is there a response? And I'm like, it's fine. I just need some accommodations. So like that's really stressful too. Like knowing that I've come up with accommodations that really help me work, especially when I was working for myself. It was really scary to go into a new workplace and have to try to advocate for those kinds of things. But I also know there's a ton of people out there that they're too afraid to ask for accommodations for fear of someone retaliating against them. I'm lucky that I'm in a environment that's pretty inclusive. So it's been okay, but yeah, I mean, that's definitely an area where all of this stuff is impacting my life as well.
Which accommodations do you need at work?
Yeah. So one of the cool things I realized is that, sometimes I have trouble organizing my thoughts into a logical order. I have started using, I use ChatGPT pretty much every day. I think, there's a lot of controversy around these kinds of tools sometimes. Like you only hear the negatives about it, like it's going to take all our jobs, it's a robot, it's going to take over the earth. Like you hear all these crazy things. But I read a study recently from Disability In, I think that's the name of the organization, that like something like 70 or 80% of millennials with ADHD or neurodivergence use ChatGPT or similar tools daily. And I use it to make my emails sound more neurotypical. I use it to make my thoughts more coherent and concise. So like I'll give it my messy notes and then have it make it into something structured for me.
Wow, that's so interesting. Yeah, what a great use.
Yeah.
And then, so that's sort of like the neurodivergence side. What about the physical side? Which of these diagnoses would you pinpoint as the one that's like, this is the one that I feel the most?
Ehlers-Danlos, hands down.
Yeah.
It's pain like every day. It's like literally like my back popping around. I think I have 2 hip tears. I mean, my physical therapist thinks I have 2 hip tears because of the Ehlers-Danlos, and like they're not repairable because if it's connective tissue that easily stretches and rips, it's just going to rip again if I get it repaired. So like I use mobility devices sometimes. I think it's confusing to people that like some days I'm gonna be having a cane and other days I'm dancing.
Yeah.
But they're not incompatible because for me the thing that hurts the most is standing for long periods of time.
Hmm.
It doesn't hurt when I walk. It hurts when I stand.
Yeah. Interesting. Wow.
Yeah. So dancing helps me a lot because it helps
Hmm.
with my balance, which is something a lot of people with Ehlers-Danlos struggle with. It helps me with my posture, which also prevents back pain and stuff like that because I get a lot of back pain. It also helps with strengthening around my joints because if you have Ehlers-Danlos, making your muscles really strong so that they hold the joints more tightly is really, really helpful. So it's in my journey, it's absolutely not incompatible that some days, even on the same day, sometimes I will be using a cane to reduce my hip pain, and then I'll be dancing without a cane. Although I know a lot of people too that do adaptive dancing, like too. Um,
Yeah.
so, so yeah, that's the
Yeah.
one definitely. I'm just in pain like all the time for the most part.
It's so interesting how when you bring up your mobility aid usage, one of the first things that comes out is what other people think. And I relate to that so much. I had an experience on the day we were supposed to record on Monday and it's Wednesday. I was
Mhm.
flared up on Monday, so we had to postpone. I had a wild experience on Monday evening on this topic where, I used a wheelchair for years
Mhm.
because, like, before getting a diagnosis, because my mobility was so hit or miss. And I would need it some days and not other days. And then when Andy and I went out for a walk on the evening of the day that I was flared up, and I start twitching and I'm having a lot of body pain. It's like I start getting some anxiety. It's like, okay, I got to get home because my body's, I
Yeah.
need to get off my feet. I might get to a place where I'm going to get stuck out here. And Andy's like, yeah, well, this would be a good day to use the wheelchair. And I've been in recovery for a couple years now with MCAS, where like my mobility has been really good. And it was so weird to me that I didn't think of using the wheelchair. But then when she recommended it, my first initial reaction was, I can't do that because of the way people will think about me in the wheelchair. And then the moment later, I'm like, what am I talking about? Like, this is me, like I've processed through all that. I spent years in a wheelchair. I was very comfortable in it. I loved it. And it's like the ableism is like
Yeah.
a creeping like growth that grew back over this, this tolerance that I sort of built against it,
Yeah.
this internalized ableism of like, what are other people going to think? And I couldn't believe that I was the one thinking this of like, oh, I don't want to be seen in a wheelchair. I couldn't believe it because I processed so hard to get over that.
Yeah.
But there's so much societal pressure and judgment to not do that, and it's really difficult. And I shocked myself and sort of ashamed myself in that moment of like, if I need to use a wheelchair on any given day, I should, because it's like better to be outside and be mobile on a day that I'm flared up than not.
Yeah.
But it's also like, wow, what a gift that I'm so stable these days that thought even entered my mind at all. Like back a couple years ago, I thought that I was going to be using a wheelchair for the rest of my life, and I was grateful for it. And now I'm just like going back to having these like automatic ableist thoughts. It's just a very strange journey to be on. And yeah, is that sort of the thing that you experience as well, is like the way that other people feel about me and my mobility aid is impacting me in a way that it shouldn't?
I think it's normal. That's normal. And you have the gift of insight. Like you are able to reflect on this and kind of understand. There are people who don't even understand that they're in this struggle with themselves. You know what I mean? So,
Mm.
yeah, I don't know. I don't have a struggle with that anymore. I just made my peace with it. And I have a cane from coolcanes.com or coolcrutches.com. I don't remember. I have like a cool, like it's fun. It's got like a fun British print on it. And I don't know, like I've found ways to make it better for myself. Like I have hiking poles now. I have like pop-up stools. It's kind of fun, but I also haven't had to use a wheelchair that much, and I haven't had to use a rollator that much yet. And so that might be new territory for me. And I think it's important if you are in the same situation that you take some time to like process your feelings and kind of sit with them because they're real. We might logically with our brains know that this is ableism. It doesn't mean in our emotions that we feel the same way, right?
Yeah.
There are definitely times. I think the closest I've come to feeling like what you're saying is when I am at the film festivals and I'm using a cane and I'm using accommodations to like be able to walk into the theater a little bit early to get a seat where I don't have to use stairs to like get up to the top. And there's times when I forget my cane and go to the bathroom. 'Cause it's kind of if you've used a cane or a rollator or anything like in the bathroom is kind of a pain. So yeah, people give me looks sometimes. So I definitely feel that. I definitely feel that like the more help you need, you might have to be grappling with a little bit more of those feelings and stuff. And my grandmother just turned 104.
Wow.
She is embarrassed sometimes to use a wheelchair to go down to be with other people. And that really is hard for me to see because you're 104. You deserve help. You deserve everyone deserves all the help. But like, yeah, I mean, we are so conditioned. It's so deep in that it can be really hard to overcome that.
Yeah, I am the biggest proponent of accessibility devices. I say it all the time. And a big part of why I started using a wheelchair was because of other content creators talking about their experience with a wheelchair. Maya, I'm a roll with it. Like when I first got TikTok, she's one of the first people I found in her wheelchair and just like rocking it. I'm like, okay, I can do this. I can do this. And it was just such a huge positive thing in my life. I have nothing but good things to say about mobility aids in general. Yeah, but like even for me, that feeling of like that weird feeling of shame, it's so unfortunate that our society is sort of putting that pressure on us because it's hard enough to live with the chronic illness and to need the assistance and to have to learn that, but then also to have to sort of unlearn the societal conditioning and also deal with the looks on top of that.
It's a lot.
This was a good reminder for me of like, wow, this is nothing about this is a static journey. And our bodies are sending us messages that our minds aren't necessarily aware of all the time. And our bodies are like having an experience here that our minds might be having tangentially on a parallel path, but maybe on a different path that we don't even realize that those two things are separate. Yeah. That mind-body connection is so important. And with the chronic illness, you're always getting this sort of feedback from your body that your mind is trying to interpret. I had a real moment of shock of like, wow, I'm in a very different place than I was a couple years ago. And I'm kind of falling back into this, like, well, now I'm working full time, the stress of the job, thinking about what I have to do next, and just like stressing instead of coming from this place of like intense gratitude that I can even hold a job, which is where I was for the first year of working at this movie theater. I was like, I'm so grateful to even be able to do this at all because I was coming off of years of not working. And that's the place that I want to live my life from, is a place of gratitude. It just, everything feels better. Everything works better. Everything, kind of coalesces in this really nice way when you operate from gratitude. I don't want to operate from stress. That's not good for anything. And it's not good for my chronic illness.
Right.
As evidenced by me being so flared up that we had to reschedule the other day. Like I need to sort of be on top of and aware of that mind-body connection and be nurturing it all the time.
I'm going to tell you the thing that you need in this moment that I cannot accept myself when people tell me, which is you have to be a little more compassionate to yourself, right? Like gratitude is not a competition. It's not a race. Yeah, we all want to operate from a place of joy and a place of gratitude and thankfulness. And I think, the gift in some way of having chronic illnesses is that you can see more parts of the human experience than people who don't have chronic illnesses have, right?
Well said. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. I can't take this advice myself because people have given it to me plenty of times. I also kind of beat myself up, but I think sometimes we just have to be, and we just have to give ourselves some rest and say, hey, I'm dealing with a lot right now, So it sounds like you're dealing with a lot too, and it's okay. This stuff's gonna happen sometimes. So
Yeah, I mean, everything I'm dealing with is good, like it's just so many good things happening at once that it's hard to stay on top of. And I always will have limitations but they've changed and I don't know where they are and I keep accidentally crossing them. But then every time I get more info and I learn, and my body's been remarkably stable on top of all of that, even with these hiccups. But yeah, I mean, that's a really good thing to keep in mind is like, we're going to cross those lines and it's okay. It's going to happen. It's okay. And you're going to recover and you're going to learn and you'll have a different perception of where that line is for the next time. So you've been dealing with a lot. You mentioned since birth, asthma being the first one at birth, but just reflecting on your life so far, 45 years so far of living with chronic illness, what has the shape of that been and how has that changed for you over the years?
Yeah, it's weird. Where I started out was, I remember distinctly, there was a time I was at the Y. I was taking swimming lessons, which I loved. And I was, I don't know, in the locker room talking to this other girl in my class and be like, yeah, I got 7 doctors. It's really cool. And then my mom's saying something that's like, you should never say that to anyone. Don't ever talk about that. And then feeling like, oh, this is not normal. There's that moment where it's like, oh, this isn't really normal. And actually, having asthma as a kid, a lot of things weren't normal because I was pulled out of class a lot to take my medication and stuff. There were a lot of sports I wasn't allowed to play outdoors so that it wouldn't trigger my asthma. And I think, thinking around that has changed over time, like too. So yeah, I felt like I felt kind of weird as a kid, a lot of levels. Then there was a time, in my early adulthood where someone said to me, you are normal, you just need a little bit of help. And some days it's a lot of help, right? But I really love that. I think I've come past that now though, to being again, like this idea of joyfully disabled. It's like, I know a lot of other people who are disabled and we're all really badass and we're all doing things. And we have a lot of things in common and we're really funny because you have to be when there's stuff like this going on. And, everyone's different. We're all doing amazing things, I think. So I feel like that's been the real journey, has been from I feel cool to I feel weird to maybe I'm normal to like, I feel weird and I'm pretty okay with that.
Yeah, I love that. That's fantastic. Joyfully disabled is a great catchphrase.
Yeah,
We've got to get some t-shirts made. I love that.
Right.
Yeah. And you mentioned being married. I know that being partnered with a chronic illness is difficult. Being partnered with 20 chronic illnesses, probably more so. What was it like for you seeking partnership on top of all these health challenges?
Yeah, it was one of the first things that Dan and I talked about when we met each other. We just got married in the past 5 years. We've known each other for about 10 years now. And he suffers from chronic migraines. He will have migraines when some months where it's like 12 days a month. I don't know how he works full time, to be honest with you, because some of them just really wipe him out and he can't really do anything except go to sleep. So it was one of the first things we actually bonded on. And I think that shared experience of, it motivated us in terms of our politics, wanting to make sure people have access to healthcare. We bonded on a lot of levels and it helped us learn what we value. And I think we have routines now where if we're both wiped out, we know we call for Chinese food or something. It doesn't have to be, it doesn't have to be a bad thing. I think all you can do is try to communicate, right? You have to communicate about not just like what you have, but like how you're feeling about mentally and like where you need support. And I think it's good to have a range of people that you can kind of talk to and have in your support network, because there are days when I can't talk to him about stuff because he's got his own stuff going on. And so having friends I can reach out to, that's really helped too.
Yeah, it's so important to have that support structure.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you feel like you have a good support structure on several
Yeah.
different levels.
Yeah, I'm lucky that I have friends that I can always text or talk to, who generally know what's going on with me and are supportive. And it's helpful to be able to kind of go back to that place, especially at times when I'm like really, really struggling.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And how do you get through those times? What is your process for when you're really, really struggling? It sounds like the support structure, the friends, the partner, that's a big part of it. Is there anything else that you lean on there?
I would just say that, like, kind of going back to what we were talking about earlier, that it's messy, right? There's not a perfect answer to that question. I will try to make appointments if I haven't made them. If that's going on, I try to have the things that are really important concisely summarized somewhere. So, like, I know the one maneuver I can do to like kind of make my hips feel better. I know I have a mental health first aid card in my house that's like all over my house. So that if I'm really in a state that is kind of difficult, I know the things I can do that will help. Another thing I'll do, I have emergency hot chocolate at all times.
Yes.
But I have to feel like, you have to try to not be a perfectionist in your recovery as well. I think there's times that you're just gonna suck, and that's just how it is. And, just having some stuff that you've made for yourself before the times that suck, like activities that are in reach, or people you can text, or like written instructions, I think is a really smart thing to do. But like, I also feel like you shouldn't beat yourself up if you do have a day that kind of sucks, because it's to be expected, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah. So we've covered a couple things today that are really good, shout outs to the community as far as like, these are things that you may not know about. Is there anything else in your journey that you're just like, man, I wish other people knew about this thing about chronic illness?
Yeah. Yeah. One is Centers for Independent Living. So if anyone has ever seen the documentary Crip Camp, have you seen that documentary?
No, I've heard of that. I have not seen it.
Amazing. It's about sort of the history of the ADA and how they got it passed through like a hunger strike, and how a lot of I think it was mostly younger people, students at the time, including Judith Heumann, who's a really well-known disability advocate, how they all met in summer camp. And summer camp was a space where they all felt accepted and normal, because they were with other people who had similar stuff going on. But yeah, it's the Centers for Independent Living actually kind of grew out of that. It was the advocacy that happened while they're doing these other kind of actions. So what they do is they help you figure out what accommodations you need to do whatever you want. So I've made appointments with them where they've helped me figure out like how to make gardening more accessible, for example. So I have raised garden beds that are on like stilts basically, so I don't have to bend down and hurt my back. And they also introduced me to like ergonomic like trowels and things that you can use to do gardening. So they have my local one at least has a huge lending library of equipment that you can try out. So if you're not sure what type of mobility device might be right for you, they can lend it to you, so you can try it out without having to spend the money on it right away. They also have people that can help you find support in a variety of different ways, and it's free. So,
Yeah.
And a lot of times people will be like, oh, I'm not disabled enough to use it. No. If you have any kind of issue that you need to adapt and you're just not sure how to figure that out, likely your local Center for Independent Living will know the answer to that question. So that's definitely something I wanna tell people about, because it's all over the country, and it's free, and you are enough. Like you can talk to them and ask them questions. You can also ask questions on other people's behalfs as well. So
Yeah, great tip.
yeah.
Well, let's imagine that we could hop you in a time machine based off of your experience living with chronic illness, is there advice that you'd have for your young self that you'd want to share?
Yeah, geez. Well, okay. We're going back in the time machine. I would say keep watching all the movies you can possibly get your hands on. You're on the right track there. Don't give up on dance class. I would say that, yeah, you got a lot of doctors, and you know what? It is kind of cool. So, and just to like, to know that if things feel hard, that maybe you should ask for help. That's what I would tell myself. I think it's just encouragement.
Yeah, I love that. Sarah, thank you so much for sharing your story with us today. It actually hit me at a really good time. Like, being able to talk to you today was very helpful for me personally, just kind of processing where I am, because I'm still on this journey. And I think potentially my favorite thing about doing this podcast is getting to talk to people with chronic illnesses. You get it, you know what it's like. And just continuing to have that opportunity to process through what I'm going through, on top of that, it's really wonderful. So thank you for being there for that. Tell us where people can go if they want to connect with you online, or anything else you'd like to plug.
Yeah, I think the best place to find me online is on Instagram, and my handle is SB1. It's literally just 3 characters.
Wow.
Yeah. So yeah, that's the best place. If you wanted to reach out about something too, you could send me a message on Instagram, and that would be great. You will also see some of my dance costumes and efforts. So and lots of pictures of my cat Daisy as well. So
amazing. I'll tag you on Instagram when this episode goes live. Sarah, thank you again for coming on the show. It was so much fun getting to chat with you today.
Yeah. Thank you, Jesse, for really kind of making a little bit of community on your own too.
Yeah. I love building community. That's something that really matters to me a lot. And I love building community around something that we all are experiencing in isolation, because we don't need to. We can talk to each other.
Yeah. And even if we don't know people right around the corner, we can listen to these episodes and like feel like we know more people out in the world too. I think that's really important, and I'm really grateful that you do this work.
Thank you so much. And I'm so glad that you're now a part of that.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Major Pain. I'm Jesse Mercury, the creator of this podcast, with support from Trisha Schmidt and Casey McKenzie. Artwork by Egg Salad Salad. Our theme music is the song Time Machine from my synth-pop album Sci-Fi, now streaming everywhere. Join our community on social media, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook, all at Major Pain Podcast. If you have questions or comments you'd like to share with myself, our guests, or our listeners, send an email to majorpainpodcast@gmail.com. You can also head to our website to learn more about this show, support its creation, or leave a comment on any episode at majorpainpodcast.com.